John Kelly for the Boxing Channel alongside Hall of Fame broadcaster Al Bernstein, set for another edition of Hot Topics, the latest news and events in the world of boxing with commentary from Al. Al, in a previous segment we talked about the popularity of boxing in the U.S. What about the popularity of boxing worldwide, specifically in the Far East?
Yeah, you know, what we've had is kind of a real building of boxing all around the globe. And now, primarily because of Top Rank Boxing, which is kind of making a concerted effort as a promotional company to reach out to the Far East with Zhao Jiming, the Olympic gold medalist who they have had out there in important fights, and now the fight in Macau with Manny Pacquiao and Brandon Rios, a major pay-per-view event that is a worldwide event. They're pushing the envelope there, John, and it's making a difference because now they're starting to show that they can really go into that part of the world and make important fights.
Compare the popularity of boxing worldwide today as opposed to, say, 40 or 50 years ago. Is it gaining in popularity as we move forward?
You know, it's interesting. You would think that it wouldn't be gaining in popularity, but the fact of the matter is, even though in the United States it's become more of a niche sport, I think internationally the sport has actually grown. And this, what we're talking about here, is a perfect example. This was a part of the world that boxing hadn't really taken hold in, that it wasn't a part of the sporting culture. But now it looks like it's going to be. There's no guarantee at this juncture that it's going to take off, but there's definitely the feeling that with some homegrown talent like Ming, they can do it.
You've traveled the world far and wide to watch boxing events. Have you ever been to the Far East?
I have never, and you know, the interesting thing is I was supposed to go to China, to Hong Kong to do a fight, and it didn't work out, but that's one area of the world I've not been to.
One of these days.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's stay in Asia for a moment, talk about a Filipino-born fighter, Nonito Donaire, a Filipino-American known as the Filipino Flash. Donaire is 30 years of age. He'll turn 31 shortly. Your thoughts on his career, his trajectory? Where is it headed? Could he still be considered an elite fighter?
You know, a lot of people feel that because of his two really subpar performances, first the loss to Rigondeaux and then the fight against Vic Darchinyan he just had, in which he was behind on all the scorecards and pulled it out with a big knockout in the 9th round. Many believe that he has declined to the point where you can't call him an upper echelon fighter. He certainly is not appearing on anybody's top 10 pound-for-pound lists these days. I think the interesting question, John, is whether Nonito Donaire has moved too far up in weight for all his natural physical gifts to give him a big advantage over other people.
What about Donaire's marketability at age 30, as I said, soon to be 31? Does he have the charisma to sell tickets and, more importantly, pay-per-view buys?
Well, you know, this was the point in his career where Bob Arum and Top Rank felt that he was going to have a bunch of big wins under his belt. They expected him to, I think they thought he was going to beat Rigondeaux, and this would just be the part where he'd be making those really major pay-per-view fights. And now, with these fights that weren't so perfect, there's a big question about that. Now, one of the other issues that Nonito Donaire is facing is how does he move forward with now his father back in the corner, along with Robert Garcia. And in this last fight with Vic Darchinyan, there were signs, John, that there might have been too many voices in that corner. And, you know, I've always said that the only person that can beat Nonito Donaire is Nonito Donaire. And sometimes it's the unrest around him that I think could have an effect on him. And we saw a fighter who maybe has lost some of his zest for the sport.
Let's talk about the 24-year-old fighter out of Clearwater, Florida, Keith Thurman, undefeated in 22 professional fights. How good is Thurman?
You know, Keith Thurman comes now off a win over Diego Chavez, a very good Argentine fighter who did a lot of good things in the fight against Thurman. Some might have looked at that fight and maybe thought the glass was half empty because Chavez was able to land some good punches and do some very good work until Chavez stopped him. I look at it as the glass half full because it showed me that Keith Thurman could take a big shot from a very good puncher and that he was able to come back and he adjusted in that fight, started to box more, and then used his power again. The thought was that he was kind of a one-trick pony who just had power, John, And he showed a lot more than that against Chavez.
That's the key in boxing, is it not to be a complete fighter? You have to have all the tools.
It is, and you know, we didn't know if Keith Thurman was going to be such a skilled boxer puncher. We knew of him as a power puncher, and what he showed in that fight, and what I think he has, is the ability to be a really good boxer puncher. I'm now of the mind that, you know, if he can move forward, especially if he can be Jesus Soto Caras in his next fight, and that's going to be a barn burner, I think we can see Thurman move ahead in the welterweight division, and I think he's going to be a force in the welterweight division. And dare I say, a couple of fights down the road, I think I would like to see him in against Floyd Mayweather.
So Thurman, a possible candidate for Floyd Mayweather Jr. down the road. That'll wrap up another edition of Hot Topics. For Al Bernstein, I'm John Kelly, reporting for the Boxing Channel.